headline story: Nigeria's March inflation figures. Yes, Nigeria is out of recession, but is the nation economically healthy? The country's inflation rate has increased by 0.82% from February to March. What is responsible for this? Can it be reversed? The state of Nigeria's economy is our focus today. I'm Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Nigeria's inflation rate for the month of March 2021 rose to 18.17% from 17.33% recorded just last month. This is according to the Consumer Price Index reports recently released by Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics, NBS. Food inflation, a closely watched index, spiked to 22.95% from 21.79% in February. The rise in the food index was caused by increase in the prices of bread and cereals, potatoes, yam, and other tubers, meat, vegetables, fish, oils, and fats, as well as fruits. The highest increases were recorded in the prices of passenger transport, medical services, and miscellaneous services, followed by pharmaceutical products, paramedical services, and personal grooming establishments. The last time Nigeria recorded an inflation rate higher than 18.17% was in January 2017, when headline inflation stood at 18.72%. Now, joining me to look at these issues and others surrounding Nigeria's economy is Economist Daniel Izevbije. Daniel, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with this. Now, there are different types of inflation in Nigeria, and all these types, unfortunately, seem to be running away from the grasp of the country's economic planners. Has there been an official government line, an official government response, an official government communication on how serious government is taking the inflation figures?
Hello, I didn't get that, please.
So has there been an official government response or statement on how serious Nigeria's government is taking these inflation numbers that are coming out?
I would say the inflation numbers are pretty much high. And in the economic terms, I would say we are currently experiencing hyperinflation, whereby the prices of goods are increasing at an accelerated rate, and the currency is not being able to purchase per unit of goods that it's supposed to be able to purchase before, and thereby devaluing the currency.
All right, so we saw a bit of rejoicing when Nigeria exited recession earlier than anticipated. But there are analysts who have said that it's not because of anything that the country did, that it's more tied to international oil prices. So with the country leaving recession, was there any other good economic news that Nigeria could celebrate?
Yeah, I would say in the agricultural sector, we are pretty much trying our best in that sector, in the goods that are currently producing, because if you check this year, last year, and some few years back, we're really doing well in agriculture, just that when we are producing these goods, the prices are really high, because we actually have the highest producer of cassava in Africa and other household items. But we produce these items and they are really much high for the masses to be able to afford.
And that's a place we're going to now. So food inflation is a very big issue in Nigeria, and many have said that it's a very big indicator of economic health and stability. So in Nigeria's case, our food inflation figures moved from 21.79% to 22.95%. What are these numbers really telling us? What does that translate to the average Nigerian on the streets?
Yeah, this simply translates that an average Nigerian will find it difficult to be able to, eat a square meal, because these days having basically 10,000 naira, you can't really purchase much with it. And a few years ago, 10,000 naira is enough for a family to feed, and at least for a little period of time, probably 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. But now that same amount cannot really purchase the same goods it was producing a few years back. And the cost is that transport cost, because the farmers they impose the cost of transport on each unit of goods sold. And they don't have any other choice than to do that because there is no adequate system in place to help them curb the increased transportation costs. I would say, or I would propose to the government that if they can actually establish a transport system only for produce goods to be shipped down from the north valley to the west and to the south, because that's basically where our food is produced at. If they can make in place this transport system whereby the farmers will need to pay a subscription of a year to use the services, that means they won't really pay anytime they transport these goods. They will only make a one-time payment for these services to be used. So they'll probably pay for a year, and then this goods will be transported wherever they want throughout the duration of that year. So that will really curb the effect of the price of these goods.
Okay, and I want to stay on food inflation a bit more. We will touch on that transport situation, but according to the consumption expenditure pattern reports from the MBS in 2019, Nigerians spent 40.20 trillion naira as household consumption expenditure. So basically, of the money that Nigerians are making across households, 56.65% of that money in 2019 was spent on food. So we can imagine what the figure is now in 2020 when we entered recession, and now when we come out, or whether when we came out. So we spend more money on food than any other thing. So you've made one suggestion now as to what can be done to bring down food prices. But what else needs to be attended to as well in order for a country that produces food in large amounts to deal with issues of waste and transportation? And we can't also ignore the fact that security is a massive issue regarding this. What else needs to be done?
In terms of the security, or what do you mean?
Anything that involves bringing down food prices.
Okay, like I said, the transport cost is actually directly evident in the food price, and also there should be a proper storage system for this food, because Nigeria don't really have a sufficient storage system. These farmers spend day in, day out, producing these goods, and most of them get wasted because of the poor storage system. So thereby they actually have to increase the price of these goods. And also I think they should actually empower the government, the farmers in mechanized farming, train them on how well to manage their goods produced and everything. Because, and if you ask me, I feel there should be a price ceiling and a price floor for these goods that are being shipped to different places in the country. But for this price list to be put in place, they have to actually make sure that the cost of transportation, the cost of storage, and other costs are being put in place.
Okay, so you've mentioned transportation for farmers, but let's look at transportation for the average Nigerian. So the second highest expenditure for Nigerians is transport. While the government reversed a proposed increase in the pump price of petrol, transportation costs across the country are still on the rise. So outside of the issues concerning fuel, what's accounting for the rise in transportation costs?
Now, transport cost doesn't really deal only with the price of fuel alone. The cost of transport deal with also the bad roads that's in place. Now, we have several bad roads in Nigeria. They have insecurity in Nigeria. So now when a farmer spends probably 4 hours to deliver a good that should probably take an hour to deliver, it thereby has its own price for time, because time is of the essence. Time can never be bought. So these goods spend more time being on the road, flying bad goods, coming to wherever it has been demanded for. And also the price of spare parts, tires and these cars that are using to transport these goods are very expensive. So it's not just about the increase in price of fuel. There are other factors that will affect the price of these goods that are being produced.
We're going to take a break on this note, but there's more coming up on this as we look at Nigeria's March inflation figures. We'll also talk about unemployment, which stands at a staggering 17.33% for Africa's largest economy. That conversation continues right after this. Stay with us. You're still watching Business Edge, and we're taking a look at Nigeria's March inflation figures, and it's not pretty good news. Economist Daniel Izevbije is with me. Now, Daniel, we've talked about the food inflation figures. We talked about how much Nigerians are spending on food, how much they're spending on transports as well. Let's also look at headline inflation and more. So inflation can be demand pull or cost push. And the current 18.7% inflation outlook is more about cost than it is about demand. And then you also now add the 17.33% unemployment rate for the largest economy on the continent. Have you seen any viable plans from the President Buhari administration to address these issues?
I would say, unfortunately, they haven't been actually doing their best to curb the inflation, but it's actually not really working because they're probably doing it the wrong way. For example, I would say I will go to budgeting and foreign exchange, because now Nigeria has to take some loans from the IMF, its National Monetary Fund, to fund this budget. Now Nigeria as a country takes off loans from IMF to finance budgeting instead of actually investing in the country. You don't take loans to finance budgeting or to pay workers or to do other things. You take this loan to actually invest in the economy. So I would say the government isn't really doing what's necessary to be able to curb the current inflation that we are actually experiencing. And it's going to actually go higher than it is right now.
So it's interesting you bring up the issue of loans. So let's quickly get to that, even though I had that further down. But this is a point that has become a very contentious issue for many in Nigeria, many observing Nigeria's politics and economic issues. So this year's budget has a 5 trillion naira deficit, which is expected to be financed by borrowing, as you just said.
Yeah.
The country's total debt profile rose to 31.009 trillion naira. In 2020, that's $85.897 billion. That's what Nigeria's total debt profile is. Many African countries are like Nigeria. There seems to be an increased appetite for foreign debt. But in terms of Nigeria, the figures, our growth rate, our population numbers, and now, unfortunately, unemployment that stands at 17.33%, how sustainable is this continued increased appetite for debt as it may be?
I would say that this debt should probably be handled and be used and how it's supposed to be used, because we take this debt and we are probably not using it how it's supposed to be used. Now, other countries actually take this same debt and take this same loan for these organizations, but they actually try to make sure that they use this debt in the right way. So I would say if we are not doing this in the right way, we will continue to be in debt. We continue to borrow, and it's just like a circle. It goes round and round and round until the right thing is done.
So let's talk now about money that goes out. And I'm talking about money that goes out from the federal purse. So the government has bailed out many sectors in the country. Recently, there was the 10 billion naira bailout for the transport sector and 5 billion naira for the aviation sector. Do you think these disbursements, whether the amounts are enough, have these disbursements, these bailouts, have they achieved what they were meant to achieve in terms of cushioning these sectors from feeling the deep impact of the COVID-19 pandemic? What do you think?
Yeah, for perspective, 10 billion naira is actually $20 million now. That's the transport. And also 5 billion naira is actually $10 million for aviation. Now, I would say this investment can never be enough because COVID-19 came and the countries of the top world were really affected badly. Nigeria, and we actually rely on these services to actually go on with economic activities in the country. So I would say it isn't enough, but now it being enough isn't the issue, but it being managed and being used adequately is the main issue. So if they can actually use these funds from the federal government adequately, I think it should be enough subsequently. Okay.
Another area that money has left the federal purse is with social intervention programs. Now, these started before the lockdown, and of course, we know that the World Bank is also involved in order to help basically keep an eye on it and to help the poorest of the poor of Nigerians. There are arguments that cash transfers don't address the fundamental reason of why people are in poverty. What do you think about these social investment or whatever programs you want to call them in terms of just giving people 5,000, 9,000, 10,000 naira in terms of seeing it as an intervention to help them away from their financial situation?
Yeah, right now, you can't just see people on the way or in the street and giving them 5,000, 10,000. There has to be a database in place, which unfortunately here in Nigeria, we do not have that. So basically, all the money that are being devoted to these people, they are not even getting to people that actually need these funds from the government. So to start with, there has to be a database in place to know those that actually need this money, the old, the poor, the sick, those in rural places. They have to have this data in place. Nigeria does not have a sufficient data for each and everyone in the country. And this is the 21st century. For you to be able to have anything done in an economy, in investment, in ethnic citizen for point A to point B, you have to have data. So I feel the government should channel a whole lot of money. I know getting data is very expensive, but in the end, it's totally worth it. So they should try to get adequate data of everybody in Nigeria, the old, the young, those that are working, those that are from 50 and above. They have to get this data in place. Those that are in rural areas, the population in those rural areas, population in some particular places that actually need this funding. So they should actually start with data, getting data in place. If they don't have the adequate data in place, all these funds won't be used in the right way and won't even get to those that actually need these funds. Okay. So I would say they actually focus more on getting data in place. But data is very important right now in this our new age.
Yeah. So finally, Daniel, before I let you go, there have been efforts to move away from an oil revenue dependent economy, particularly as Nigeria cannot control a majority of the factors that influence oil revenue. There have been movements towards building up the agricultural sector, diversifying the economy and more. But nothing seems to really be making the kind of difference that Nigeria needs to see. So in your opinion, what needs to be done with Nigeria's economy that can turn things around positively?
Can you repeat the question again, like from the beginning, yeah, please?
So what do you think can be done with Nigeria's economy to turn things around positively?
Now, first of all, I will say back to the issue of data. We have to have data in place to start with. We have to know which sector and which sector needs what and what. And also, we have to try to improve in each of these sectors and try to make sure that whatever it is the government is doing are being done and being done appropriately well. There are sectors that really need to be faced, like agricultural sector, transport sector, investment sector, and the forest industry, That will start with, because now we're focusing more on, agriculture sector and then the transportation sector. So I would say the government should try to enable these farmers, that involved in this in producing, because basically Nigeria produces everything we eat in Nigeria is produced there in Nigeria. Be it rice, be it beans, be it corn, be it, basically everything we actually consume are being produced here in Nigeria. But why are these goods so expensive? And because there are no adequate storage systems in place, there is no adequate mechanized farming in place. The transport system is very poor. So if they can fix all of this one after the other, then we can talk about moving the economy from point A to point B.
All right, we'll end the conversation on that note. Thank you so much, Daniel Izevbije, for joining me on Business Edge. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're welcome.
And as we wrap things up, you know how we do, especially on a Friday, and helping you to get straight into it with a few stories we're keeping our eye on. This is NC4 to watch. China's economy has expanded at its fastest pace on record in a sharp turnaround from its historic contraction caused by the coronavirus outbreak. The world's second largest economy is the only major one to grow at all in 2020, supported by industrial activity and better than expected exports as the virus hit markets around the world. It grew by 18.3% in Q1 2020. Nigeria's Security and Exchange Commission has announced that it is working with the Central Bank of Nigeria to understand better and regulate cryptocurrencies. This was disclosed by the Director General Lamido Yaguda at the 2021 First Post Capital Market Committee virtual news conference. He, however, said that SEC remained supportive of fintech and has invested so much in developing a framework to support their operations. Kenya has not changed the pump price of fuel despite an earlier prediction that it would. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority has retained diesel, petrol, and kerosene prices for the period between April the 15th and May 14th, 2021, despite an increase in the landing cost of crude oil in March 2021. And finally, the economic powerhouses in Africa like Nigeria, Kenya, among other countries, Uganda's central bank has recently kept its benchmark policy rate unchanged at 7% in a strategic move that promises stable lending rates amidst increased credit default levels and renewed strength in the value of Uganda shillings against the US dollars. That's it on this edition of Business Edge, and it wraps up our week. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also go to our website, www.newscentral.africa. Download our mobile app on Play Store and Apple App Store. And of course, follow us on YouTube if you've missed any of our financial, economic, and business conversations from the continent. Until next time, I'm Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun.